What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to our 7th and final Revit tutorial for this series, where we basically will start to go over how to create a sheet and how to import and organize your drawings on the sheet, changing the scales and editing the title blocks on your sheet. So I always preface these videos by saying, if you haven't seen parts 1 through 6, I recommend that you go and watch that first. However, if you're just interested in learning more about sheets, you're more than welcome to stay in this tutorial and just follow along. So we're going to flip our attention to the screen now. So we've done a lot so far, and I'm happy that each of you stuck through to this very point. So I'm going to preface this by saying, if there's anything left that you haven't done, just cleaning up the drawings, this is the best time to do it. Just pause this video and go ahead and start doing that. You can switch your doors, you can change some of your fixture, reorganize your furniture just a little bit. So far we have everything. And what we want to do, we want to bring these all to sheets. So normally in a firm, sometimes the way it's organized, you might have all your floor plans in one sheet depending on the project and the scale of the project. However, in this example, we're going to give each floor plan its own individual sheet, including our site plan that we made. So to start off, if you go to your project browser and you scroll down, you'll see here is where we can access some of the schedules we made in the previous tutorial, and here is where you can see all your sheets. So in order to create a new sheet, all you have to do is highlight Sheets and right-click Sheets to click New Sheet, and then you just pick your title block. So if you do not have any title blocks currently in Revit, just click on Load, and then you can go to Title Blocks here, and you can pick accordingly based on the size that you want to print. For now, for this tutorial, we're just going to be working with the 30 by 42 horizontal title blocks, and we're going to hit OK. So first things first, we're going to start off by laying out the floor plans. And there might be a few things you'll notice over here. And actually what we want to do before we even import it, there are certain parameters for each sheet that's going to be consistent, and that's the owner, and that's also the project name. So first things first, what we're going to do for each of these title blocks, we're going to click on the sheet, and let's start off by arranging each of these parameters. So we want to change the designer, design by, just put your name. I'll put Daniel. Approved by, normally this is the person who goes over to your drawing and approves it. You can just put DB Studios. I mean, I don't know. You could put whatever you want. You don't have to put that. But I'm just going to put that for the sake of filling out the categories. And author, drawn by, you put your name. We want the sheet numbers to alternate like this, the A101s. Although technically when you go to a firm, there's technically a whole format for naming your sheets, but we're not going to worry too much about it, and we're just going to leave that as it is. The issue date is correct. And for the sheet name, you name it according to what you're going to put on the sheet. So we could call this sheet Ground Floor Plan. And you hit apply, and everything is updated. So once we have each of these set up, so we're just going to go and hover over the text for owner, and we are going to change the name of the owner to, I don't know, you can also put your name, but maybe you want to maybe put another name, maybe put your middle name or something. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to put Daniel B. Inc. I don't know, something like that. And then here we're going to name the project Residential Housing. And now for each sheet that I made, it's going to begin to follow the same format. And let me demonstrate. So let's actually make a sheet this way. Let's hit load. And now you can see that this, once I change it, it's going to be consistent on each of the sheets. And the reason for that is this is almost in a way like a master parameter. So anything I change within these two title blocks is something that's going to repeat itself on multiple sheets. So let's go back to our sheets over here. Let's open it up. We have ground floor plan. And likewise, let's repeat the process. Let's also create bedroom floor plan, or let's just call it the second level floor plan. So approver. Once you fill it out, you should be able to open this drop down and just fill it out just like that, instead of having to type it out again. And we're going to name the sheet second level plan. Apply. That's good. And then let's keep doing this for each floor plan. So let's get our next one. So once we have that, what we want to do is click on the desired floor plan. Let's start off with the ground floor plan. So actually, since we're on the site plan sheet, let's just start off with the site plan. Click, hold, drag, bring it over the sheet, and then click to paste it. And here it's set to this scale, but we can always rearrange the scale if we want to. We're going to click on this, and over here you have the view scale in the properties window. So we want this to be somewhat bigger. We could try 16th, maybe even bigger than that. Let's try an 1/8. That's a little too big. Or actually, let's see. I'll even make it bigger, and what we'll do, we'll change the crop box so that it cuts off a little bit more. Now that's huge. But you know, this is a lot better. But actually, maybe it's just slightly too big. So let's try 3/16. So somewhere in between. That's really good. Let's click here and let's go down to crop view. You could click here, go on crop size, and you can adjust it this way. So this is a 30 by 42 page. So let's make it something wider, and we can make it more, like, let's say a little bit square. So let's go on something like 20 inches by 22 inches. Hit OK. And it's showing a little bit more, but maybe we want to adjust the constraints a little bit more than that even. So let's even do something. Let's bump it up a lot. So if that's 20, that's 22. Let's make it a 28, or let's make it a 36 wide. And the height, we're going to aim for 28. So let's see how that fits. It's not too bad, but now we want to just make it a little bit smaller. Now it's just a bit too wide. 32 inch height, 24 inches. And that works pretty well for my liking. I'm just going to click here, and let's not have the crop frame visible in the title block. Just to hide the crop region, you click here and you uncheck crop region visible. We do want to have the title with our scale. What we're going to do is click here once, and let's drag it up. And now we have that over here on our sheet. And this is going to be the same process for each of our sheets. So we're going to want to adjust the scale to your liking, and the scale really depends on the size of your project. If you have something like this, or you have something smaller, maybe you want to make it bigger. But at the same time, let's say you want to organize all your floor plans on one sheet. That's more than welcomed as well. Therefore, you might have a much smaller scale, maybe the initial scale we had when we imported this. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to repeat this process for each of the floor plans. And after I finish the floor plans, the next thing we're going to do is bringing in our sections. But actually first, one quick thing I do want to say is that when you do import the view into the sheet, everything you're doing, the cropping, the changing of the scale that you do on the sheet is actually going to affect the view on the plans. So if you don't want the views to be affected, all you have to do is hit duplicate view with detailing and make a copy, and you could just rename it sheet. For example, site plan for sheet. So doing that way you can still have the normal view that you normally had versus having the crop view as well. So I suggest doing that if you don't want this view to be altered in any way. Now we have each of our sheets laid out. And I didn't center everything, but it's okay. Let's just continue forward with the other sheets that we have to make. So we're going to make new sheets for the elevation. And personally, what I like to do is actually pair my elevations. What I mean by that is I can have 2 elevations per sheet. I can have one view on top, the other view on the bottom, and then the other 2 views on the following sheet. So let's just make 2 new sheets for our elevation. Sheet name, we're just going to be generic. Let's just call it elevation set 1. And then same thing, you already know the drill. So this is elevation set number, actually I just realized I did it out of order. So let's name this number 2. And the first one is going to be elevation set number 1. And then same thing here. So now we have both set of elevations. We could do north and south together and then east and west together. So really this is up to you. How much of the landscape do you want to show? I really find the fact that our curving landscape is really visible here. I find that pretty appealing. So what we're going to do is let's pick an appropriate scale. The next one seems to be 3/16. Let's just see how big it is actually. And I believe the 3/16 will work out pretty well for these. So let's change both of them to 3/16. And then same thing like before, we're just going to turn on the crop region just so we can see it. I'm going to crop both of these views, crop view. And what we want to do is crop region visible. So let's activate that. We're not going to change the height. I think the height is pretty good. Let's change the width. I find that 34 works pretty well in fitting inside the canvas. So let's just do something like 34. 34. We might have to even do it maybe something like a 32. That's actually fine. 32 works pretty well. So same thing here. Crop size. Let's just make it 32 inches. And now we have it. So let's drag this inside, click and drag that inside as well. Let's line it up. We can just click this and hold control. We could click this. Let's drag the endpoint in here and then click this, drag the endpoint there. Let's line it up. Perfect. And now we can just uncheck, make crop region visible, uncheck it. And here we have it. You know, the interesting thing is we don't necessarily just have to leave the graphics like this. So now here comes the interesting part. So if you click on any one of the elevations and let's scroll up to visibility graphic overrides and the graphic display options. First, let's start here and click graphic display option. You could see the model display mode and they give you different modes. You can change it. Right now we have hidden line, but you can even put something like realistic, for example. Let's give it a second to load. And here's your realistic looking elevation. Using realistic, especially if you use a lot of trees and shrubs, it's going to be very heavy. So I don't recommend doing it unless it's necessary or unless you have a really, really nice entourage, and showing the entourage helps explain your project in one way or the other. So I'm going to go back to the graphic display overrides, and I prefer either using consistent colors or using shaded, or even, because I feel like shaded is just like another nice and fun way to portray this. And we can even do something like shaded, where it does begin to add just a little bit of shadows to it. And let's click here. My preference, however, is going to be hidden line. I think it's just really clean, simple, and effective. The colors can become a little too distracting depending on what's in the composition. So visibility graphic overrides is just a way to kind of highlight or make certain things less pronounced in the view. So what you can do, for example, is go on annotation. You can always, my favorite thing to do ever, use halftone on the grids and lighten it so that the grids is not popping out too much. And another thing we can do is we can actually double click on it and we can actually, let's extend this. This is pinned. Let's unpin it and let's drag each of these upwards, and then we pin it again. And now it's starting to look a lot cleaner that way. And likewise, we could click here and go on visibility graphic overrides. We just want the grids to be at halftone so it's not popping out as much. Looks way better this way. And we can even affect the section line, which is very, very bold, even lighten this as well. So let's go on visibility graphic override. And if we highlight sections and make it halftones, we can even begin to halftone each of these in the drawing, just so that it's not popping out too much. I think for our elevation views, seeing the section line being so bold in the drawing isn't the most important thing. So we want to also halftone each of those. So let's click on this one, visibility graphic override, and we're going to do the same thing. Let's scroll down and let's head on over to not section boxes, but sections. Hit OK, and now it looks much better. And we're going to follow the same procedure, and we're going to do this also for our next set of elevation. And now you can even rename this to elevation set. Instead of saying elevation set 1, you could call it elevation north and south, or we could say north and put the and sign. Switch it to that, north and south. Looks cleaner. So now we also have our elevation set up. I do have a lot of trees blocking it, so you can't really see it. What I could do is double click in here and hide the trees in the view. That can begin to help just create just a little bit of clarity in your elevation. We could do the same thing here. We could just hide this tree, for example, hide elements in the view, just so that our architecture is just a little bit more visible. So we're just manipulating it that way. Otherwise, this is pretty good. And we have our elevations and all these sheets. Now we can move on to our section. So likewise, right click, new sheet. Okay, and we're going to call this sheet section. Let's call it section 1. Maybe 3/8 work very nicely for us. We just have to crop the back somewhat. Yeah, this is much better. And we could just make this 3/8 as well. Here is the cool part. Remember the section arrow that we saw from the plan view? Now here we can see that now we have an annotation here. What this points to is the page that this section is located. So I could just click here if I want to. So if I just want to access the other section, I just click there and now it specifies it. And here I could click here and now it takes me to the other section as well. And even if we go to our floor plans, let's go on ground floor plan. Now we see the number applied to our section. And this can also navigate us to the appropriate sheet. So actually another cool way to crop boundaries, instead of always having to do that, because I realized that it could be a little tedious and it's good to know multiple ways to do something. So if you click the crop box itself, and this is much simpler, just go on edit crop. And that way you hit this and check and you're good. It's just that the other method gives you a little bit more control in terms of knowing what the dimensions are and keeping the dimensions proportionate. There's another part to the graphics display that I need to show each of you. So if we click this and we go down, we can begin to add shadows. So let's click cast shadows, ambient shadows, and we can even do something like a sky in the background. So let's pick the color. Let's say we want the color to be something bluish, like that. We hit OK, and we could begin to have something just like that, and it follows the direction of the light. You can always click here and turn off the lighting itself. You can also make your thing appear sketchy if you want. You can increase this, the jitter, and you can start to make it look a lot sketchier, like a sketch, which looks freaking cool in my opinion. So I actually might do that for this. Let's actually make it a little sketchy. And for shadows, let's just have ambient shadows rather than cast shadows. Yes, we have the sky. Let's make it even lighter. Let's change the tint just a bit. Slightly. Let's do that. Let's hit OK. If you don't want to use the sky, you could just use a type of gradient, and you can organize the gradient however you want and just hit OK and just have it that way if you'd like. So there's just many ways to go about doing that. I'm actually going to tweak that just a little bit and hit OK, and you can just do it that way. So there is many ways that you can begin to do your section. Bump that up. Hidden line is good actually. And on shadows, let's go on ambient shadows and hit OK. And you can start to have it looking like this. So there's just many ways to go about doing it. The preference is really up to you. So I'm going to fast forward this ahead. The next few sheets that we need to make is a sheet for our call out for our details. We need to make a sheet for our renderings, and we also need to make a sheet for our schedules. And there we go. So now just to quickly run through each of our sheets, it should look something like this if you decided to follow the same formatting that I have for these sheets. We have the site plan, these. Feel free to always go and change the visibility graphics, or if you want to make some of the elevation lines be a little bit less prominent, you can do that too. As I did here, let me just quickly do that for these sheets right now too. And now, yes, we're finished. Let's just go and take a look how this look. I'm just going to leave these two sections looking different for the sake of contrast. I find it very interesting. And we have our call out here. And what's very nice is if we go back to this section, now that we put our call out on a sheet, it's going to reference that sheet right here. So whenever we decide to go and actually click on this call out right here, it's going to take us to our call out in the project. So that's really super cool. It's a really easy way to reference different drawings as well. And here's our detail for our call out as well. And then you have your schedule. Sometimes having some sort of detail along with your schedule is very good to help the contractor visualize what you're saying, or visualize some of the different components. So that's always an option. But of course, that's not something we got into in this tutorial, so we don't have that. And in our last sheet, you can add as many sheets as you want for renderings, but for me, I'm going to just stop there, and we're going to move on to the final step, and that is exporting your sheets. So when you want to export your work, there is two ways you can do it. You can export it by individual sheets, or you can export it in groups. So now we're going to go on File, and actually before we go on Print, let's go on Print Preview, and I'm going to explain why right now. So sometimes Revit, especially 2018, 2019, and even in 2016 sometimes, there's a small glitch where if you don't go on Print Preview and you try to print your file might end up taking way too long to print to PDF, or it might end up not printing at all. From the Print Preview screen, we want to click Print. And then from here, set it to your desired PDF output, whether it's Bluebeam or Acrobat, whatever you're using. So we're going to click Adobe PDF. Here we want it to be combined multiple views / sheets to one single file. We're going to do it like that. And then here you're going to put just the name of your project. This is going to be our name. Just going to copy that. And then click Select Views and Sheets, because you want to select that. And now we're going to click that. And now let's click Setup. So for Setup, here's where we're going to change our paper size. So we're going to change it from letter. Remember, our title block is formatted to be at 30 by 42. So we're going to go to Arch E1 that matches that. And we're going to make sure it's placed from center. We want vector processing. We want it to be high. Landscape, of course. So we'll hit OK. And now under selected view, we want to click select. But actually, let me pause quickly. Just in case, for example, you click select and nothing's happening, or you click setup or browse and nothing's happening, what you should do is just hit OK, and then you will be given the option to put in the file name, and then you input the file name and hit save. But then you're going to notice that nothing saves. So what you're going to do is do the same thing, go on file, print preview, then hit print, and then you will be able to click and select these things. If that's happening on your computer, I can't really explain why that's the case, but Revit tends to have this glitch and has many bugs that really needs to be fixed by Autodesk. So do that and it should work right after. So then continuing there, we're going to click select to select what sheets we want to use. We don't want to print any views, so we can uncheck views. We just want to print each of our sheets. So let's check all of these, hit OK. And no, we don't want to save these settings for future Revit sessions. You never know when you might need to edit your settings once again, so just hit no. And then from there, we're going to hit OK. Once you pick your file destination, hit OK. And you have chosen to print 11 sheets. And no, we do not want separate files. Make sure it is combined. If you want it separate, that's completely fine, but it's just easier to present and submit this way. So let's combine it, hit OK. Once again, it's going to prompt you to pick a location. Let's put this, and let's put final, and let's hit save. And now you should see this dialog. That means it's being processed, and you just wait from there. So mine just finished. Now let's go to the folder. It actually took about almost 2 minutes for it to finish on my computer. I have a pretty decent GPU, so if it's taking longer on yours, just pause it. When it's finished, just continue afterwards. So we're going to go to the folder where this is, and it's over here, and let's check out the final results. So here we go. And here is each and every one of our sheets. And if we zoom in, because we know this is a PDF, and you can see the line weights look pretty good. Only thing I would do is go back and make this maybe a gray and fix it that way. Just change a bit of the line weights, so be wary of that. Make sure your line weights are pretty good, but not too bad actually. All right, if you zoom in, yeah, not too bad. And there were a few lines I didn't delete, the lines that I drew for the outlines of the stairs. So just make sure your drawing is properly cleaned up before you print it and before you send it to your client or anything such as that, or whether it's a school presentation, make sure it's cleaned up. But otherwise, not bad. This is not so bad. This is probably one of my favorite ones. I don't know, something is it feels a little bit atmospheric too. So with that brings us to the end of our 7-part Revit introduction tutorial. So I hope each and every one of you beginning to understand the Revit interface. Of course, this is super condensed despite how long each of these videos are, but the idea is that if you know these principles, if you are comfortable with working with each of these things, no matter what project you put on, no matter how complex the project may be, you will still be able to adapt well enough to complete the project and work efficiently. And from there, you're going to be able to learn even more cool tricks and critical ways to go about using this program. So if you're still watching this video, I have a challenge for each and every single one of you. So after you complete this project, on your spare time, I want you to start a new file and do everything that we've done in these last 7 tutorials. It doesn't have to be in the same order. I do not want you to think that there is a formula for working on these projects, like a certain procedure you have to follow, but I want each of you to start to get comfortable working with the different interface the tools, and being able to navigate in Revit to be able to find the specific things that you need for your project. So please like, share, subscribe, and please leave a comment. It helps, especially if I know what you each think of the video and how I can improve my videos, or if you have a specific topic that you would like me to cover. And sharing the video helps a lot. It helps with boost the YouTube algorithm so this video appears in more page. I want to reiterate, I am not being sponsored by Autodesk or anyone to do these videos, so it's completely non-profit at the moment, and I'm doing this to help each and every one of you. And just because I am learning something myself, being in the position of teaching these things. Take care, and I hope to see each of you in the next tutorial.